The New York Giants had one of the most interesting drafts this year. And while any draft featuring Abdul Carter, most people's #1 player in the class, is never going to be bad, and they got some good picks in the late rounds like Cam Scadaboo, I'm not that big of a fan of it. I think there's some areas of weakness. I think they maybe shouldn't have traded up. And I think certainly teams in their division had better drafts. But since my lovely co-host over here is a Giants fan, I will let him have first crack at things. Tristan, tell us what you think of those moves the New York Football Giants made.
I'm going to start off positive when talking about the Giants because I am a Giants fan, but I'm going to be labeled as negative and a doubter of the direction they're headed in if I start there first. So for starters, they got Abdul Carter, widely viewed as the best edge rusher, potentially the best player in this year's draft class, to pair him next to Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns. If their pass rush is not top 5 in the NFL next year in sacks, it is a failure. In the third round, they got Darius Alexander, who is a bit of an older prospect, which is why he maybe fell a little bit relative to where people had him graded. And in college, he flashed the ability to rush offensive tackles at 300 pounds. So the fact they got him who can generate a pass rush next to the guys I already mentioned, that is a very good thing. And they established they are going to have a good defensive line heading into the future, which you have to like a lot. Last year, we saw Tyrone Tracy emerge. He showed off that deep speed with big runs. He showed the ability to break some tackles. He showed the ability as a receiving threat out of the backfield. They didn't really have someone to pair with him. They now have added Cam Scadaboo to that. Everyone watched him in the college football playoff. His ability to run through people, his ability to run routes in the receiving game. A weakness of his game is pass blocking, but to pair him with Tyrone Tracy, I think that is a great thing.
The weakness of his game is he is slow as dirt, so let's touch on that too. I may dust him in a 40.
He gets to his top speed quickly, but
and then he stays there.
His top speed, how high that top speed is to be determined. So he's not the fastest running back in the world. But I think a lot of the players they added made a strength an even bigger strength. It made their run game more sustainable, supporting their veteran quarterback or their rookie quarterback, who I'm sure we'll mention in a little bit in the long-term future. So I think what they did in the draft, you can't really be mad at it because they added some really good players that are going to make it easier for them to win more games that led them to the 3rd overall pick this past season.
I mean, beating MAC tackles with power, which is what Darius Alexander was doing, might not exactly track immediately to the NFL. I think he's a fine athlete, sure, but I would not count on him being a big contributor day one. Scadaboo, there's a reason he fell. I think he can be successful, but I think to be at his most successful, he needs a lion's share of the carries to physically break down an NFL defense like he broke down the defenses he played in college, like he broke down Texas over the course of that playoff game. So maybe you see Tracy's role take a decent-sized hit, but I don't think it was a bad draft. The only real part I have issue with is the Jaxson Dart process. And I think they gave up too much to move up 9 spots. They traded a very early 2nd-round pick, which was basically a 1st-round pick, and then 2 3rd-rounders, which is where you're looking for starters. I don't know how good the Iowa State receiver is going to be, who the Texans picked early. I know Charles Grant is a very good offensive tackle. Sure, playing in William & Mary, weak comp, whatever. Phenomenal athlete. Should have time to develop into a starting guy in the NFL. I think he will be a very good player for whatever team grabs him, and that is a pick the Giants could have made. I think getting Jaxson Dart where they did, bit of an overreach. I don't think anyone was going to go out there and take a swing at him. I know the Rams had rumors circulating around that, oh, they're going to trade up and get Dart for the future. That never made sense to me. That is essentially giving up a chance to get a pick in the Super Bowl window. Trading back still gives you more picks in next year's draft when you have Matthew Stafford under contract, so you can make that final all-in push for the championship while he's on the team. Just smoking the pick on a QB who's not going to play while Stafford's around doesn't seem likely to me, but
when you're looking at the high-end potential he has the the ability to run the ball at a high level. He flashed that in college. He flashed high-level arm strength with his ability to push the ball down the field, outside and in between the numbers. So he possesses a lot of talent. I don't think that should be in doubt when it comes to Jaxson Dart, the prospect. And since we have Brian Daboll, who did have him on the whiteboard, he was able to meet with him. He was able to work him out. He's finally able to select his guy who he is handpicking to run the offense, and he has 2 veteran quarterbacks to put him behind to hopefully still win football games to keep his job. I think that was a good process. And you mentioned trading up 9 picks to select him. Maybe the Browns were looking at targeting him with their second-round pick. Maybe the Browns liked him as the second-best quarterback in the draft class. I don't think it's necessarily just the Rams who wound up trading back, and that is why that is being coupled with the Giants and Rams are being coupled together in that discussion.
If the Browns have a favorable evaluation of a prospect that you like, that should tell you should maybe steer clear of that prospect. I don't know if that's the thought process we want to use here.
Well, the Rams have been thrown out there a lot, but I think that also doesn't necessarily mean there was another team they were worried about trading in front of them. So I think the process they went through to get Dart, I like. I like that Dable is finally getting his guy. It's not Daniel Jones who he's trying to fix. It's not the complete disaster that was the quarterback room last year after Daniel Jones was not on the team anymore. So I think the process is good. They have 2 veteran quarterbacks for Jaxson Dart to sit behind. They can bet on his high-end potential that I think he can offer. I like Dable going out and getting his guys, would be my opinion.
I push back on the high-end potential thing. I think he's clearly not a top 10 athlete in the NFL, even if he does developmentally. I mean, you look at the tier 1 guys like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, Dart's not even close to that. He's not in the same stratosphere. Then you go down to, you look at the Drake Mays, the Caleb Williams, the Patrick Mahomes. Those guys are also clearly on another level of arm talent, running ability. So you're getting a tier 3 athlete for the NFL. Yeah, he can run a little bit, but I don't know, man. I don't think he's some special generational athlete. He's certainly no Anthony Richardson. He's certainly no Jalen Milroe, who if you're drafting a guy based off pure potential, you easily will have taken Milroe over Dart. Looking at the faults in this game, the one-read offense has been talked about to death. I don't need to touch on that. The inability to stand up to pressure without freaking out or taking unnecessary hits is not good. The style of running where he looks for contact, tries to bang his head off opposing defenders, that's not good for the NFL. Jaden Daniels had to learn to slide very quickly in order to stay healthy and on the field. Dart is going to have an even bigger learning curve from his style of running, and he is supremely unclutch. He fell apart in the biggest moments. In the must-win game against Florida to send Ole Miss to the playoffs, he could not perform. So I'm not high on Dart the prospect. I had 3 guys above him, Ward, McCord, and Milroe, not in that order. So sure, if it's Dable's guy and you think that's going to mean anything, by all means. Dable signed off on Daniel Jones. You can say as much as you want, you think it was the owner. Dable, if he had put his foot down, I truly do not believe Daniel Jones will have been the Giants quarterback.
Yeah, Dable would have been out the door because we all know how
You
much...
think they fired Dable after leading them to the playoffs? You really think that? They think they Daniel Jones with his 7 touchdown passes over Brian Dable?
I think Daniel Jones was heavily pressed on him by Mara and potentially Joe Schoen. I have a higher opinion of Dable than I do of Joe Schoen.
I mean, what's the bar for that? Joe Schoen let Saquon walk to the Eagles. How low of an opinion of Joe Schoen do you have?
But when it comes to the bad we've seen in Jaxson Dart's game, you mentioned the big hits that he takes way too often, the interceptions that he threw in big moments against good teams. Yes, that is all there. Everyone is privy to the bad and all of the good plays from these prospects. You mentioned, you'd rather have Milroe, you'd rather have McCord because they have better tape. Milroe has more potential. McCord's more pro-ready. Sure, I'll grant you all of that, but when it comes to meeting these players and being able to question them on their weaknesses and why those decisions were made and gauging whether you think you're going to be able to coach that out of them or not, clearly, Dable thinks he's going to be able to coach those flaws out of them. And if you're able to harness Jaxson Dart's strength, his arm strength, his ability to run the ball, operate Dable's offense, I'm fine with that, passing on players that we may have tape graded more highly.
I think you have far too high of an opinion of Dable. I think being a great offensive mind does not justify reaching on a prospect. If Andy Reid used his first-round pick on Shedeur Sanders because he sat down at a great meeting with him, you won't be hand-waving that. So there's a limit to the value of the picks, even if the offensive mind is well-regarded. So I don't know. The worst-case scenario is the Giants win 5-6 games for whatever reason, which is still an improvement on this year. Dable and Schoen get fired, and now you've got Jaxson Dart sitting in limbo, where the coach who brought him in, the front office which brought him in, is no longer there. The only way around that which has Jaxson Dart succeed is the Giants hire Lane Kiffin as their next head coach, steal him away from Ole Miss in the SEC, and have him implement the style of offense he had in college. I don't know why you're laughing at that. Lane Kiffin's a good coach, bit of an egomaniac, but that would fit in with the Giants administration. So
I think that we'd have some. I don't foresee that happening.
well, who's the Giants'
But
next head coach?
Do you think the Jaxson Dart has the gift of gab? He's just wooing Brian Dable.
Yeah, I think he got up there on the podium with a purple. And Dable immediately soiled his bridge and said, oh, we need him. Joe, make the call, Joe. Trade up to 5. Trade up to 4. We need multiple picks. We need Carter and him. And Shane was able to reel him in a little bit.
So you don't think there's any possibility that he is an intelligent quarterback, a good athlete, and was just running Lane Kiffin's offense, and he has the potential to learn and run Dable's pro-style offense? You don't think that's at all possible?
And what did he look like before he got to Ole Miss?
He played 1 year at USC.
Didn't look like a pro-style quarterback. Is it a possibility? Yes, anything's a possibility. It's a possibility Shedeur Sanders is the greatest quarterback of all time and carries his 74 college completion percentage into the NFL and completes 75% of passes for the Cleveland Browns. Anything is possible. If we're going to play that game, sure. No draft pick is bad. Everyone's got infinite potential. The greatest quarterback in history of the sport had no athletic ability whatsoever. If we're going to play that game, do I think it's likely? No, not really. I do not see him being a long-term franchise quarterback. I have nothing against Dart. I hope it works out for him. He's entertaining to watch for a bunch of reasons, some good, some bad. But he can't process the field. He can't stand up or sense pressure. His athleticism isn't that great. I mean, it's a Giants
We're
pick.
hearing a whole lot of negativity on the side of the room, and you jumped the gun a little bit on the worst case scenario and what could go wrong for the Giants this season.
I mean, are they going to crash an airplane into the stadium? Are we going true worst case New York scenario here?
No, well, I mentioned I was going to be positive first. I didn't want to be labeled a hater immediately, but I want to go to maybe some of my more negative perspective on the 2025 Giants, because you just take a look at their offensive line. We didn't mention it yet, but they did draft an offensive guard who many had graded much higher than a 5th round pick. They were debating taking him in the 4th round. Maybe he becomes a plus starter. That would be an ideal scenario. But outside of that, you look at the rest of the offensive line. Andrew Thomas is the only high-level, very good starter they have there. And when it comes to Andrew Thomas, there is a big but.
He's caked up. He's been squatting. The butt's big.
Can he?
Brand ambassador of Thicc Inc., Andrew Thomas.
Can he stay healthy? He has missed 16 games over the last 2 seasons. He has not been reliable in his availability to stay on the field. So is he a very good player? Yes, but he also hasn't been healthy. And then you look at the projected starting lineup. You have John Runyon, John Michael Schmitz, Greg Van Roten, and Jermaine Illuminor. The other guys they signed, not overly productive. All the guys they signed, including the projected starting lineup, they're all middling at best. Depending on how much you value PFF grades, they're all sitting at between a 40 and a 60-something, and all of the 4 different blocking grades they give out. So
John Runyon is one of my favorite offensive linemen ever, because the Vikings would just line up Harrison Phillips, Linval Joseph right over top, and then get sack or pressure, sack. He's terrible. The entire O-line's terrible. You don't need to get to the PFF grades.
So they're not great. I mean, you have Evan Neal waiting in the wings, on the bench somewhere in the building. Maybe he's not in the building at this point.
Needs to pull Mekhi Becton, go to the Eagles, and learn how to play guard.
They declined to pick up his 5th-year option, and ironically, we mentioned PFF grades. His run blocking grade, he happens to be very good at that. It's sitting in the green. It's sitting at 80. He happens to be, a good run blocker. Unfortunately, he's probably the most tragic pass blocker I've ever had to lay eyes on when it comes to an offensive tackle. So maybe he slides into guard at some point. The Giants clearly don't think he's able to do that with some of the pieces they've drafted and free agents they've signed. So he's just somewhere on the team. He's probably not going to play a lot. So this offensive line has a whole lot of potential to get Russell Wilson sacked a lot, who we know holds on to the ball too long. Jameis Winston, who likes to turn the ball over, throws a lot of touchdowns, but he also throws a lot of interceptions. He could get completely flustered, injured at some point. If the rookie has to go, if Jaxson Dart has to go in at some point, you're putting him behind that offensive line. So when it comes to the Giants' offensive line, could the pieces they're putting together work? Yes, there's an outside shot, but just based off recent track record in history, my confidence is not high for this group to put it together.
Just thinking back to the Joe Shane Hard Knocks clip of why they're letting go of Saquon Barkley. It's him saying, oh, we need to spend money on the offensive line. We need to make that unit better. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. Dan Moore got a whole lot of money last year despite leading the NFL in sacks allowed with 14. That's because Russell Wilson is the easiest quarterback to sack in football. He will hold the ball forever. He will drift backwards. He will let himself get sacked and try and scramble. At this point in his career, he is not the athlete he was in Seattle or Denver. So things could get a little bit messy. We could find ourselves dealing with a Pittsburgh Steelers front half of the season team where the ball's coming out quick. The defense is hard carrying them. They win 8, 9, 10 games. We could find ourselves dealing with a situation like the Steelers in the back half of 2024 where Russ is a complete liability. The offense is one-dimensional go balls to Malik Neighbors, and they win 4 or 5 games. Either or is an entertaining prospect.
A perfect world for the Giants in the next year to 2 years. They win 8 to 9 games this year. Brian Daboll is successful with the 2 veteran quarterbacks he has signed, but the opposite of that, this organization, not very stable. What is Mara's patience given how the Saquon Barkley situation played out, given how it's been reported the relationship is between Shane, Daboll, and Mara, and they only win 5 or 6 games. The veterans get hurt. The rookie steps in. The whole regime gets fired. And then you have to bring in another coach who was not the coach who drafted, or the coach and GM who drafted Jaxson Dart. You're asking them to rehabilitate him, make him a good quarterback, and then we're back in the same place we started when Daboll came in and he was asked to fix Daniel Jones.
I mean, perfect world, everything goes completely wrong. They win 1 game, Arch Manning falls into their lap, and they get a desirable offensive coordinator who wants to come coach Arch. Great, if I was Arch in that setting, I think I'd go back to Texas and get a nice $5 million NIL check, but
I don't think Arch is coming out next year.
You never know. I mean, I wouldn't come out the Giants at the number 1 overall pick, but that's just me. Anyway, the Giants had a fine draft, got very high-level players. I don't think it's that good. It's not generational. It's not going to change the direction of this organization.
Winning the NFC East.
The Giants are what they are.
That has been our take on the Giants. My take on the Giants from a Giants fan, a realistic Giants fan, I would like to think. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll have more draft content. We've had draft content posted to our TikTok page, posted to our Shorts feed, and we will see you in the next one.